Welcome everyone to the New Frontier webinar. My name is Josh Boaz. I'm the Managing Director and co-founder of Direct Agents. Today, we're going to cover a couple different topics. I'm going to start with a state of the industry, and then my colleagues Emily and Kari are going to talk about new media opportunities and brand strategy. For our third session, Megan Conahan and Daniel Owen are going to talk about Amazon and some of the future trends in commerce. And then rounding out our webinar, Dinesh Boaz, my co-founder, he's going to focus on some new opportunities, NFTs, and what brands are looking forward to in the coming year. So just starting out on the state of the industry, I'm going to give you a quick introduction, then give you a picture of kind of what the macroeconomic trends are, what some of the trends and changing trends are in consumer behavior, and then hopefully leave you with some ideas on how, as marketers, we can take advantage of some of those changing trends. But just to start, just quick overview of Direct Agents. So we're a digital marketing agency, really, with kind of roots around performance media. We were lucky enough to celebrate our 18th year in business just a couple of weeks ago, and the industry has evolved so much in these last 18 years, and then I feel like in the last year we've had so much growth and change as well. As an agency, we really pride ourselves on the ability to stay kind of on the forefront of new innovations and new technologies. We also really differentiate based on our people. We're a diverse agency. We're minority owned. We have over 40% people of color. So really kind of we like to think of ourselves as looking at things from a different angle, bringing a different diverse set of viewpoints to our clients. So just shifting gears, kind of talking kind of more at the macro level around just some trends we're seeing. So we started this series of webinars really about a year ago when the country first went into lockdowns around COVID, and I think in April of 2020 we pulled together some of our different marketing experts and really had kind of a discussion on where do we think things are going. And it was very uncertain times. I think a lot of the economic indicators were talking about how deep the recessions are going to be, and could this be a Great Depression number 2? And it wasn't the most optimistic of times. I'm happy to say kind of a year later, with the vaccine rollouts, with all the progress that's been made, there's an end in sight. And just kind of in terms of kind of vaccines, the predictions are by Q3 of this year, certain areas will have reached kind of herd immunity, especially in the U.S. and some other countries that are kind of ahead of the curve in terms of vaccination. So just a year later, and so much has changed, and it's I think we can start this conversation today really from a point of optimism and hope. So kind of leading into that, so at the global level, all studies are showing that most regions in the world are optimistic about their economic future. So of surveys of kind of individuals from different regions, in the U.S. itself, I think something like 86% of people indicated that they see the next year being better than the last in terms of kind of their economic well-being, their families' his kind of financial strengths, and that's repeated across the board, across the world. There's a few regions that are still kind of lagging behind, most notably Latin America. But other than that, the world is generally coming from a place of economic optimism. And that economic optimism is coupled with, for the first time in a long time, very historic savings levels in the U.S. So the average household save something like 2.5 times what they would usually save. So their balance sheets have gotten stronger. So typically, when there's these kind of economic disruptions, a lot of households and businesses, and just generally, the balance sheets are weakened, and there's a kind of protracted period of time where people are saving and trying to rebuild their fortunes. But this time around, because of the kind of massive amounts of government investing, also that the many parts of the economy still continued even through COVID, and then also with kind of the rise in certain industries actually grew, like some of the digital industries. you're seeing that this economic optimism is going to start from a place where people have the financial wherewithal to really take advantage of it. And so what does that mean? It means, as some have dubbed, kind of the beginning of the roaring 2020s. So you have consumer optimism and household savings at record highs. You have businesses having kind of survived a tough year, but coming to 2021 and onwards with strong balance sheets and the ability to invest and grow. And that all adds up to just really strong headwinds or kind of tailwinds as we go into the latter half of this year. The National Retail Federation predicts that spending will increase over 8% through the end of the year. GDP indicators that originally were showing that the U.S. could maybe grow 1 or 2%, as the pandemic leveled out, are now being revised upwards to 8% or higher. And then I think in certain sectors and certain industries will even have faster growth than that. I did want to make a point that even though there's a lot of optimism and there's a lot of kind of positive trends, there are kind of sectors and groups of people that have been left out. Just as COVID kind of affected different people in different ways, and certain parts of society were overly impacted. The economic recovery is not for all. So as you can see in this this study, within the U.S. at least, there's a lot of optimism and a lot of growth amongst middle and higher income families. Unfortunately, at kind of the lower income level, the job growth is more uneven, and also that if even sadder, some of the economic impact will be negative. So they'll actually end up in a worse spot than they started out. What does that mean for marketers? It means that whatever messaging, whatever kind of planning and campaigns and other ideas you have to grow your business moving forward, it has to take this into account. Who are your customers? How do we talk to them? What messaging do we bring to them? Because for some, it's going to be a sign of hope and the roaring 20s and back to life. For others, it's going to be like, how do we rebuild and get back to where we were at least? The other thing we pay a lot of attention to at Direct Agents is just what's happening with consumer behavior. What trends are here to stay? What trends are ephemeral? We saw in the last year many companies and many of our clients experimenting with lots of different changes, whether it was different ways to interact with their consumers, shifting to more digital first methodologies, shifting their sales strategies to kind of being more omni-channel, bringing products to the consumers, bringing services to the consumers. And like that, as a society, we had a year of experimentation and growth in new areas. Some of the digital transformation that happened in the last year equated to 10 years prior of transformation. So it was a really rapid learning effort for everyone. So what do we think is going to stay? From some of the kind of the studies, some of the behavior shifted for good, right? So e-commerce as kind of the first solution, the digital kind of transformation around health and wellness and at-home learning. A lot of those things are going to stay for lots of different reasons. Some of the other areas may be more fleeting, right? The increase in consumption of digital media, whether it's streaming or gaming and other things that people were doing just because they had no other option. Are those going to stay through a summer and fall of safer communities? And will people choose in real life over digital? Will they choose some kind of hybrid of the two? That kind of remains to be seen in the coming months. Also on the media side, we saw the 2020 to be a remarkable year in terms of shifting just kind of industry spend in terms of where companies were making their media investments. Overall in 2020, we saw a 7% increase in digital spend. What's interesting about that is most of that growth, that increase, went to Google and Facebook, right? So that duopoly that we talk about a lot. So they captured the lion's share. Clients doubled down in their performance marketing, really trying to optimize spend just to driving sales, just to driving new customers. And in 2021, the predictions are that the growth is going to be even faster. Some of the larger holding companies, their media investment groups are forecasting increases of 21% for this year in terms of overall digital spend. And while that's, I think, great for anyone in the digital business, I think as marketers, we have to look at that and say, okay, well, that growth is great, but if that growth is all going to be spent with Google and Facebook, maybe we need to think about other ways. So thinking about diversifying your media investment strategy, thinking about all the new platforms that are there, the new channels that people are spending time on, so shifts from TV to streaming, from other mediums to audio and podcasts. There's so many different kind of consumer trends and consumer behavioral changes that happened in the last year that the media investment dollars hasn't really kept up with. So those are one of the things that we as an agency really spend a lot of time thinking about. And then so how do we act on that? All these things, from the kind of economic changes to consumer changes to the media shifts. So how do we act on it? And one kind of theme at our company in the last several months we really think about is, in this world of such fast-paced change and in the world of increasing automation, when more and more of our efforts just get captured by the Googles and the Facebooks and the marketplaces and things that were frankly just automated, right? How much actual input can we have, and how do we influence it? One of these concepts that kind of really resonated for us as a leadership team is just the concept of leaving handprints. And so there's a fascinating book by Kevin Roos where he talks about future-proofing yourself, right? How do you, as an individual, but I think we can extrapolate that as a company too, as a business and even an industry, how do we fight this kind of automation, and how do we use it for our advantage, but also keep our, what makes us special, right? How do we leave handprints? And I think the concept he talks about is to make clear that you are a human creating human work. And I think as marketers, if we really dive into that and we say, okay, well, that's our starting point, that's our starting strategy, then there's a lot of interesting things we can build from that, and to think about how, in a more meaningful way, we can take advantage of this growth that's going to come, and take advantage of it in a way that will last, for the longer term. So as a performance marketing agency, the way we look at it, I mean, performance marketing, driving tangible results, that's a core of what we do. But more and more, to leave those handprints, we really have to think about brand growth, right? How can we help clients have those authentic conversations with their audiences, and create those connections that last over time and that pay dividends as time goes on? So there's a lot of different ways to think about this, but our starting point, back to the beginning where I said we're a diverse agency that comes to these things with a different lens, and we really look at all of these areas through what we call our polycultural lens. Like how do we find different audiences that we wouldn't usually think about? How do we find audiences that the algorithms aren't optimizing towards? How do we create content in a way, and creative in a way, that authentically talks to those audiences? And then when we do, and we started building those conversations with potential customers, how do we build communities around those brands and foster that one-to-one communication? So, all different ways from just the usual kind of performance marketing levers. But I think it's the companies, the marketers, the people that take that time to create and leave those handprints are the ones that are going to really capitalize on this once-in-a-lifetime growth opportunity that we're going to see. So just quick takeaways before the next session. So economically, it is we call a Goldilocks moment. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance, and it may be slightly uneven, but more or less, people are going to be seeing growth in the next year. Digital behavior has changed, and we have to continue to change towards that. The way we adapt our commerce, the way we adapt all of our other marketing strategies towards it. We have to think beyond just performance marketing. We have to think about diversifying away from the duopoly, and we have to think about how do we grow our brands and leave those handprints. And so with that, hopefully that was a good introduction and give some thought starters to the rest of our conversations today. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues Emily and Kari to talk about brand strategy.